Unaendelea kutazama Citizen Town Hall ambapo tunakuletea matangazo haya moja kwa moja kutoka The Well, Karen. Na nataka kumpatia mwanahabari fursa ya kuuliza swali. Eliud.
I'm Eliud Kibi, a journalist from The Star, and my question is to either Isaac or Gladys, because some of you have been beneficiaries of the tool of using handouts to get to office, and some are also planning to also use in 2022. What do you think then should be the way forward to end this trend or this culture?
Can it be undone? Duncan, simama tafadhali.
I'm Duncan Otieno. My question goes to Mwahura. I want to ask that, are you taking advantage of the poor wananchi as you give them the handouts so that you can get advantage over others in maybe defeating them in elections? Thank you.
Okay, those two questions, I think.
Yes, thank you, Wahiga. Thank you, Otieno. Thank you, Eliud. First and foremost, for the 2 times I've been nominated, I have not used money to be nominated, because the party sees your contribution, your value, and you're top of the list. It has happened, and I'm very grateful for that, because it also helps me to be very objective. But when I went to vie for Ruiru parliamentary seat, I used over 30 million shillings to run for that seat, and I didn't win. So to answer you, Otieno, the people who are competing with me, one of them spent 50 million, we were 3 of us. The other one spent over 80 million. And that tells you, and the one who won spend more. So it is very interesting, because if today you give 100 and then your competitor gives 200 tomorrow, then it's a vicious cycle. So it actually advantages the moneyed.
Okay.
So really, I wish, whatever we are having this discussion, Wahiga, that we were not to use money, because I belong actually to that group where you speak your policies, you are clear, people actually even know that you are maybe the best, but they choose to see the other way.
Okay, Honorable Wanga, solutions was what somebody else wanted to hear about.
So I think what we need to do is to have this conversation like what we are having today. Let's not just have it, let's not leave it to the politicians to explain that we are not supposed to give you money because my work is just legislation, oversight, and representation. Come to me if there's something stuck at an institution which you need me to use my influence, which you've given me to follow up. Come to me. There are people who are saying, oh, we're looking for jobs and so on, to get to see openings and see how we can facilitate our constituents, capacity build them to get those jobs. So I think we need to begin to have this conversation, and politicians can't have it, because when you have it, people think you're running away from them, you don't want to give them money. But some institutions should be able to carry out civic education so that our people understand what is the role, because we've even been running away from this CDF. They've been trying to take CDF away, for example, saying that an MP's work is not execution. Your work is to make law. Let somebody in the executive execute. But our people don't understand. They want you to bring a road. They want you to bring water. They want you to bring... So if we can have civic education, so that both the politician and the people are at the same level, they know what their expectation is. We keep talking about America. We keep talking about the UK. Nobody goes to a UK member of Congress, for example,
what role can
a
you
US
play
member
in
of
that
Congress.
Civic education?
We will continue to talk to our people.
It is unconstitutional for members of parliament to join the executive in spending monies raised. It's unconstitutional.
But I think that has been sorted through
it hasn't been sorted.
The PMCs.
No, you have twisted the executive.
No.
But the truth is, it is unconstitutional. Anybody who has a very rudimentary understanding of what is going on would know that members of parliament are not supposed to spend money.
Yeah. So
Prof,
the matter of CDF was taken to court, and the courts have ruled on it, and they have given, and the law has been adjusted according to the ruling of the court, where the member of parliament does not have a direct role in CDF in any way. There are committees that do the work of CDF. So but this comes to the bottom line of this matter is we are not on the same page. The electorate is not on the same page with the law. on what is supposed to happen. So let us carry out civic education. Let our people know what a member of parliament is supposed to offer and what they are not supposed to offer. This job can be done by members of parliament partly, but if the members of parliament carry it as their own burden, they will be misunderstood as not wanting to fulfill whatever the electorate.
I want to come to you, but let's get the last two questions. Then I'll come to you to give you a response. Go ahead, Mashrima.
Naam, kuna mmoja hapa Paul Mutua anahisi kuwa tumewachapa sana wabunge. Sasa nataka kuwachapa pia wananchi.
Okay, I'm Paul Mutua from Catholic University, and I would like to ask a question. What is it that can be done to deal with the effects which are already among the citizens, which are caused by the culture of handouts? For example, concentrating on the issue of laziness, you find that some citizens are just lazy because they know if they get a problem, they go to their politicians who will be able to solve their problem. What is it that can be done to deal with these effects of the culture of handouts? Thank you.
Okay, I think Honorable Kadhangu, you can start with that. He's asking what can be done now that the culture of handouts, unfortunately, is very well entrenched in Kenyan society. He says it's led to things like laziness amongst some Kenyans. They now know shida ikifika mheshimiwa ndio ataangalia. How do you respond to that?
Actually, you know, Wahiga, the Kenyans are not lazy, but Kenyans have placed themselves into ignorance, that they do not want to understand what happens out there. Just like people were saying during the constitutional referendum, is that if Kibaki tells us, we understand. If Raila has said it, the two of them have read, sisi tuko sawa, we will follow them. And that is what wananchi are doing. So, like Gladys is saying, let us be able to interrogate the issues coming from parliament and from the executive, whether they are statements from political rallies or it is something discussed and debated in parliament, so that you can understand the gritties of it. Without which, then it will be very difficult for you to participate equally with the member of parliament, who is also a Kenyan just like you. But what I wanted to say earlier on.
Okay, briefly, please. We have want to get one more question. Go ahead.
Yes, was this, that as far as I'm concerned, unless the members of parliament themselves totally take their responsibilities and roles, it will be very difficult to change things here. Because one, we have said here, and Manyola said it, that we have to be tactical, whether in the parliament or elsewhere. Because when we gave the member of parliament responsibility to oversee CDF, we were not saying that he becomes the manager. All we did was to be tactical, because that time, you know, the KANU and the opposition were fighting every morning, and the KANU will not vote with the opposition. So we decided in parliament to have the KANU with us. Let us have some few things to introduce money in their constituencies, so that they can see there will be direct benefit. And all of them actually voted with us. And because of that, Moi sacked Andrew Kipton, because of agreeing with the opposition. Now that time is past. We do not have to ask people to join the opposition or what have you. So the members of parliament have to be tactical again and say, how do we cut this vicious circle? And to cut the vicious circle is to introduce yet another small law, so that, because freedom, you cannot enjoy that freedom without laws, that we know that you get up to here, and from there you have to respect others.
Okay, yes. Thank you. I'll give you a final thought. Okay. Let's get that last question.
Na kuna wale ambao wanahisi kuwa wanaona kama wabunge wanalalamika sana, lakini wanahisi kuwa hawajai kuwaona wakiwa bila pesa. Simama Robert.
Okay, I'm Robert Juang from the Great University of Nairobi. Mine is directed to Mwaura and Wanga, and again Mr. Kadhangu.
Okay, please ask your question, please.
Okay, my question is, over days you complain about handout, but then after the elections, I hear some of the MPs, women reps crying they are broke. Does it mean that you use more than you spent? Thank you.
Okay, fine. Thank you. We'll take that as the last question, I believe, because we are out of time. Let's get some closing remarks from each of you. And Honorable Moro, we can start with you as you answer his question. And you can also talk about how do we stop this cycle this vicious cycle?
Yeah, thank you very much for that question. I think it is true. We use money to get elected, and then we start complaining of being broke all along. We are milked for 5 years. We do not have the finishing power after 5 years. New people who have been saving money come, they do the same thing, and it becomes a vicious cycle. What I said in the beginning, poverty producing politics. Now, it has to stop somewhere. Because the fear that we have as leaders is that if we do not give, we will not be elected. And losing power is very difficult. But it is also true that whether you give or not, 7 out of 10 members of parliament will not come back. So it takes actually people to stand up and show the other way, because that may change. And even if some people may be casualties, over time, it can be a trend that will help this country, because it actually is a very good incentive for good governance. But also, I would want to ask the electorate to also be appreciative. Why do I say so? In the last parliament, I was actually awarded for being the best Wajiko representative of special interest. I was even given a state honor by the president himself because of my work. Okay. But on the ground, when you go there, nothing counts. Now, let me just say this.
Okay.
In this current parliament, I've introduced measures that have helped the new currency to be used by blind people.
Not using this platform to campaign for
yourself. No. It's good to say what we do, because we do not tell us to say, then we will not show what we do on the other side.
Okay.
So I have been able to introduce the new currency to be used by blind people. I have been able to petition Parliament to reduce the fees for unemployed people. I have been able to ensure monies that are appropriated go to certain groups that heretofore were not being allocated for monies. But those things do not count to the electorate. So what we are also trying to say, let also our voters, the citizens, appreciate the work we do in Parliament. Not just to wait for us to give handouts, and the person who goes to the most funerals and Harambees, and the one who is always on the ground is the one that you want to vote. It is a two-way traffic. Because if we were to feel appreciated by the number of bills, by the numbers of laws, then we will also feel the value of doing the actual work of a member of parliament. But if you don't, we will not attend parliament, we'll go looking for more money, because that's what counts. That is what is going to assure me to come back to parliament.
Okay, we'll take that as your final comment, Manyora.
You see, I use matatus a lot. I'm a poor Kenyan. On the way to Ngong, there's a roadblock. Just before that, KBC, it used to be called VOK. There used to be a hotel there called Shared Hotel. And I noticed that when matatus approach the roadblock, they slow down. Then they don't stop. Then they go. So I became a bit keen. You know what they do? They drop outside the window 20 shillings. Now, when you get a man, you reduced a man to that level, you have dehumanized him. So what leadership is doing in this country is to dehumanize Kenyans. As you celebrate and say handouts, we are talking about a very serious thing which we need to end. And the question has been raised by the audience. How do we end this? Now I will tell you this. Don't go back to Wananchi. Moi said it. Don't go back to Wanjiko. He has elected you. Leaders must bring this culture to an end. Because
so don't go to the constituency.
Yes. Don't even civic education is a waste of time. Because there's only one way and one time when people contribute to change. Do you know when? Go to Sudan.
Mm-hmm.
The general people want leaders to improve their life and to change society. If leaders don't, the only way people come in is through a revolution. So if these leaders want a revolution, then the people bring a revolution. That's the only way. Otherwise, we have surrendered our rights in a democracy to the leaders. To come back to us to change things is to stand logic on its head.
In as many words, you're saying when they get calls for fundraisings,
they must
go for them.
They must do whatever it takes to change that state of affairs that dehumanizes Kenyans into begging for 50 shillings. You get it? If they don't do that and the country continues going down the hill, then the people will take the law into their own hands, and there's going to be a revolution in this country. That's what I mean.
Honorable Wanga, are you ready to take up some of that advice, even as you give us your final thoughts?
Yeah, and why not? I think let's have a discussion and let's have a debate as members of parliament on how to grow the things that I've spoken to earlier, and I don't want to repeat. And now we have a platform called the Big Four. Let's clutch onto that, and as Parliament allocate money to where it needs to, so that we see our industries coming up, so that we see our farmers getting getting value for their products, so that we see a closure of the imports, sugar imports, imports of clothes, imports of, so that we see a close to all those things. But then I'd like to say, Wahiga, that the debate on the remuneration of members of parliament is actually a debate, a distraction. Because even if you look at the entire parliament, say just bring down parliament, bring down that building, send away all members, it's 1% of the total budget of this country. It's 1%. It's 1% tops. So this debate around remuneration of members of parliament, yes, it's interesting. Yes, bashing of members of parliament is good, but then it doesn't contribute much to solving the problems that we face as a country. I disagree with Professor Manyora that this is a leaders-only affair. It must be leaders and the electorate. We must both play our part in choosing the leaders that we want. I gave myself as an example. The people of Homa Bay elected me as a young woman without anything. They elected me and put me to this position. And I'm sure they can elect other people, and they've elected other people without having money to give them, just by virtue of what you present yourself as. And somebody talked about the enigma when we were away, like His Excellency Raila is elected all the time by the people who elect him without him, giving people handouts or whatever it is. And people have the capacity to do that. But we must encourage them to make it a standard. Okay. Somebody said it here, Wahiga. Let me say, they have to choose between service delivery and handouts. People have to make that choice at the end of the day.
Leader? Do you also have to make that choice?
I have to make the choice. First of all, as a leader myself, and as a politician, let me say as a politician, I have to work on my strategy for election. That is one. But two, I have to deliver services to my people either way. Okay.
Honorable Kathangu, you have the last word here. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. I think, first of all, we have to remember that Kenyans have to be patriots and patriotic enough as to appreciate that there is a political state. That political state is made up of these members of parliament, the House itself, and the executive. That is the president and his ministers. They are the people who can decide to take the people's sovereignty to themselves, which they have done. For now, the same people we are talking about, that they have the power, have been so impoverished that sometimes they miss even the voice and the small strength to challenge those two arms, that is the executive and the legislature. For this reason, if we want our people to enjoy their power, their sovereign will, then the executive, the president, leading them, and the members of parliament have to do something, oversighting each other to see to it that nobody abuses the will of the people. Okay. If the members of parliament think the president and his ministers are abusing our societal values, they have to stop them. If the president thinks that parliament is becoming dictatorial, he has to stop them. Okay. But when the two of them unite against the people, then the people must rise to stop them.
Okay, thank you. Honorable Njeru Kathangu, former MP Runyenjes. We'll take that as your last word. Thank you for joining us today for this panel discussion. Honorable Gladys Wanga, Woman Rep Homa Bay, asante sana as well. Herman Manyora, thank you so much for joining us for this discussion as well, together with Honorable Isaac Mwaura, who is a nominated senator, and to the audience that have waited here patiently and asked all those questions, and to everyone else who's messaged us on social media as well. Asante sana. Time to wrap up the program. But before we finish, Mashirima, I'm sure you have some last words for us.
Na Mwahiga, Waswahili husema palipo na wazee hapo haribiki neno. Kwa hivyo nataka kumpatia mzee aweze kutumalizia kipindi chetu cha leo.
My name's Paul Wachira, and mine is a comment on that question. These free things and handouts have given birth to corruption and the bribes. We are a Christian country because this is a real cancer in the country. As a Christian country, free things used to be there before Adam and Eve sinned. There were free things. When they sinned, God told them, by your sweat you will eat your bread until you return from the earth where you come from. That is where the solution, free things must stop.
Free things must stop.
Free things must stop.
Ni Bwana Paul Wachira hapo akiwa anatoa kauli ya mwisho, na nakumbuka pia juzi tu mbunge wa Malindi Aisha Juma alipomsimamisha Edwin Sifuna kuongea katika mazishi akisema kuwa watu wamekuja kufariji, kunao walimshangilia. Sasa mimi nashangaa kama kutakuwa na mbunge ama mwanasiasa yote ambaye atakataa kutoa pesa kama atashangiliwa. Naitwa Mashirima Kapombe, usiku mwema.